Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. Did you know that plants are truly amazing? Not only can you grow them and eat them, you can also wear them, drink them, nourish your skin with them, and so much more. Let Ellen and Michael inspire you to love plants as much as they do, as they chat with the movers and shakers in this wonderful plant-based world. So, let's dig in.
Lava Light, naturally the best. Effortlessly nourish and protect your plants with a collection of totally non-toxic, environmentally friendly, sustainable, pH neutral, lightweight and 100% natural products. The collection is made up of 8 different horticultural growing and potting media and pest control products, with each continually offering the same natural benefits: thermal protection, moisture retention and control, soil conditioning, and providing a nutrient boost, as well as being completely child, pet, and environmentally safe. Learn more at lava-light.co.uk.
Hey guys, Andrew Jackson is a man with a mission. After working in social housing for more than 10 years, he had a yearning to make outdoor spaces better for residents. Upon buying his own new build home, he soon realised how daunting it can be to suddenly have a blank canvas full of promise, yet not have a clue what to do with it.
And years later, after finding his feet with that very new garden, Andrew has put together a new Build Manifesto, which makes some strong suggestions for how housing developers can better prepare residents for their new outdoor space. He believes his manifesto is in harmony with the housing developer world, whilst also having firm environmental beliefs.
And quite excitingly, Andrew is actually building a test garden plot called Over the Fence at the upcoming Harrogate Spring Flower Show. And we've got him here on the podcast today to talk about the garden and his manifesto. So welcome to the podcast, Andrew.
Thank you so much. I've been a fan for a long time. So, this is really exciting for me. So, great to be a part of it.
Cool. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to chatting about this, especially based upon where I live. There's a ton of new development. And I'm always looking at it thinking, where's the green? What do they do with their gardens? So tell us about your journey. What prompted you to compile, the new Build Manifesto? You tell us about you.
So it's born out of personal experience, as a lot of these things sort of are, I guess, in that I've owned, we've owned sort of 3 new builds now. And I was not interested in gardening at all. I kind of always thought gardening was the thing that your dad does and that your grandma and your granddad does, and that sort of thing that old people do. And I kind of like I like the results. So I like looking at the results. And I always remember my grandma's house. They lived in council housing, social housing, and it was so incredibly neat and tidy, but such kind of vibrant colours. And I remember that even from being a little kid. But never really liked to get my hands dirty, in all honesty. I was kind of always a bit scared of dirt and worms and all of that kind of thing. But it really was born out of that going through that process of buying a home, really kind of sight unseen and off plan, which lots of people do these days. And I had a lot of reflections at the time about how you could bespoke absolutely everything to do with your house, down to absolutely minutiae around, do you want round knobs for your kitchen doors? Do you want pull handles? Do you want matte finish? Do you want glossy finish? All of this sort of stuff. You could literally bespoke anything you liked within the home itself, but nothing to do with the outside space. There's never any conversation with the developer about, other than, would you like turf with that? That was kind of the extent of the conversation about the garden. And it just made me really think about, why can you do all of that bespoking inside, and yet the outside is always seen as that sort of afterthought and not really considered. And that's actually not just a developer thing. It's often a kind of consumer thing as well. Again, I speak from personal experience that when we moved in here, we saved a lot of money. We spent a lot of money on furniture and doing all the things inside. So actually wasn't really thinking about spending money outside. You kind of buy the furniture so you can live in the house. And then just remember looking out at, from our wonderful new home, at a complete desolate kind of rubbish tip. It sort of takes away some of the magic.
Yeah, I think that's part of making people appreciate the garden as simply another room of the home. I think that is a useful way to look at it. And kind of, I certainly know I spend a lot of time in the Netherlands, and they really see it as an extra room, and they kind of will make over their garden like every few years, the same way that you would redecorate a lounge as well. So I guess it's trying to change our kind of belief in that. But I think before we dig in a bit more into the manifesto, I think for listeners, first of all, like, what is a manifesto?
That's an interesting question. So I'm not going to go down the Communist Manifesto route, which is obviously the most famous manifesto in history, but it's really kind of setting out a series of pledges and kind of not demands, but kind of wanting commitments from developers, but also from new build owners. So it is, it's deliberately bold, and it's deliberately a little bit provocative in places as well, because I think that's how you make change happen. You have to be a little bit provocative sometimes. But hopefully it's balanced in a way that, I'm not coming at this from a place of no experience when it comes to kind of housing development and, given my background, that hopefully I can see both sides of the coin, rather than it feeling like, it's not an eco-warrior crusade. There's actually commercial opportunity here in my mind for house builders when it comes to some of these ideas.
Okay, and why would you say now is the right time for your new build manifesto?
So I think it's, there's been a lot of house building targets from governments of all persuasions for the last 20, 30 years. I think it's one of the well-acknowledged facts in this country that we've got a huge housing shortage, that the current government, committed to building 1.5 million homes over the next 5 years. That's going to be 1.5 million new homeowners. There have been over 500,000 new homes built over the last 6 or 7 years. So, new build owners are the fastest growing gardening community in the whole of the UK. And yet I feel they're still woefully underrepresented, actually, in the kind of garden media and the garden press. It feels like new builds don't get the same play as some other gardens, across the country. But it's also about making sure that new homeowners get the information they need to make informed choices, I think, about what they want to do with their outdoor space. They're often quite cash rich sometimes. Obviously, they're owning their own home, but they're often time poor. These are often kind of busy professionals that haven't got the time necessarily to sit down, think and plan a garden from scratch, which, as we all know, is quite a difficult and lengthy process. So it's about arming them and enabling them to, help them along that journey without them having to do it all themselves.
Yeah, I think this is so important. It's like in my mind, I'm thinking about things coming in at different angles here because, like you were saying, new build homes are the fastest growing homes, new build in England. And obviously recently that has come hand in hand with them, the government opening up space that was previously determined unbuildable land, that we're now building houses on. So we're taking away land to build homes on, that previously we couldn't build on. I'm trying to be diplomatic here, and I don't want to talk about politics in any way. But what you're suggesting is if you're taking land to build homes on that, yes, people need, we should at least be arming, those new homeowners with information, knowledge and access to making their green spaces good for them, good for people, but good for wildlife and nature as well. Do you see what I mean? So it's kind of like we're taking this land that previously we weren't to build on. Now we're building a ton of homes and then just generally leaving it looking awful. So you're
guardians of the land almost, which is...
Yeah. Because, we can't just take the land and then do nothing, like build homes and then just absolutely have no green space. That's not good for people or planet, right? So we've read through your manifesto and you've got like your 7 main points, which I think is a really good point in this chat to run through now. So just to see how these kind of all fit in on both sides of, the consumer and the developer. So your ready-made garden design, talk us through that. So this is one of the 7 main points. What is a ready-made garden design? Is it like gardening by numbers?
Well, so I think that's a really interesting question, and I think gardening by numbers in itself is an interesting way of putting it. I mean, it is back to that point around being able to bespoke things. So, you can bespoke all the stuff in your kitchen and your bathroom and all the rest of it. Why not be able to bespoke your garden? But I think it's about doing it in a way that doesn't feel, again, overwhelming for people that might not necessarily have a ton of gardening knowledge. So actually what I wouldn't want to do is kind of, set up a service with a developer and a local garden designer where you're asking people to say, do you want a cottage garden style or do you want a Mediterranean garden? Because people won't necessarily know what any of those things mean. So actually in my head, it's almost like kind of choosing fabric swatches and stuff like that in that it's about showing people kind of images and how it makes them react to that and how they feel about a particular style of garden just from the kind of aesthetics of it without getting, bogged down in garden design speak, which I think, there's a bit of a tendency to do sometimes in that, everyone likes to be the expert. So for me, it's not about dumbing it down either, but it's about making it really accessible so that, a new build owner could work with a developer and a garden designer, look through some different kinds of gardens and say, yeah, I'd really like something like that. They'd pay for that privilege, obviously, in which the developer can make a profit on it. It's a classic kind of upsell, cross-sell from a developer's perspective. But it's back to the point of actually there's a lot of new build owners who are relatively cash rich, but time poor. In that I think there'd be a lot of people out there, and certainly new build owners I talk to would have loved to have had access to a kind of bespoke garden service when they moved in. So that, back to that point I made right at the start of our chat around moving into a brand new shiny home and then sitting and looking at a rubbish dump outside your back window, how amazing would it feel to walk into a spanking new home and look out at a freshly planted garden? I mean, that would, for me, from my own experience, that would have felt absolutely incredible. So it is trying to take the effort away and the onus away from the owner if they don't want to do it themselves. And let's face it, we'd love everyone to be committed and passionate gardeners, but they're never going to be. That's not the world. But actually, if we can get those people that aren't necessarily, the hardcore gardeners into a place where their outdoor spaces are still contributing towards that, that overall biodiversity, that's the dream, really.
I've often thought that garden centres could also step in at that point and kind of offer, a complete, almost what they were doing in the pandemic, like a complete palette of plants. Like maybe you're spending £799 on a complete garden of plants and you tell them the square footage, you then get delivered exactly what it is to put in. And so I feel like there's so many directions this can go in. But the next part on your manifesto was about turfing. Now, developers, it seems so obvious now you've explained it in your manifesto, but developers, obviously, they turf the whole garden. Yeah. But that's kind of weird because when you have a garden, you want borders. Nobody wants to mow the lawn right up to the fence. So what is your suggestion with the turfing?
Well, having spent the first 6 months of living here with turf when it was finally put in, swearing quite a lot at having to mow right up to the edge of a fence, which is an absolute nightmare. And then feel like you're just pointlessly mowing the grass over and over again. For me, I mean, this is a classic kind of easy win situation in that having spoken to developers, they quite happily leave a border around the edge. So it's not a question of it costs them.
Yeah, less turf, isn't it?
Yeah, it's less turf for them in a lot of ways. But this is the point around arming people with the knowledge so that actually as a new build owner or a new build purchaser, you can ask that question of the developer and say to them, actually, look, I'd like a border around the outside. Can you leave me a strip around the edge of the garden? And every developer I've spoken to said they'd quite happily do that, but they very rarely get asked.
Interesting. Do you know what? I was just thinking to myself, we live on a new build development here, and almost every new build space you go to has their sales office, yeah? And the sales office garden is barely ever turfed. There's plants everywhere. They'll have plants making it look pretty, and then often that sales office, or that home, like the show home, if you like, they sell that off last. But all the plants in the garden is done then. So developers must know that having it looking nice is a great selling point. Do you know what I mean? So like, why build the homes and turf the whole garden and do absolutely nothing else when they know that their show home or the sales office looks great with plants? Do you know what I mean? Like, they know that helps to sell.
Yeah.
Well, completely, and it's a win-win in that everyone knows that the better looking garden you've got, it adds value to the property
and makes you feel good as well.
Completely, absolutely.
We're forgetting even that element we haven't even covered that element yet.
So let's talk about the all important soil, because I know people who've moved into new build homes and said the soil is awful. It's just rubble and sand and terrible. So I was really surprised when I read through your manifesto to find out that developers sell off topsoil. Do they really sell off topsoil and just leave that mix of rubble in the garden?
The risk of becoming complete public enemy number one to the development community. I need to avoid sweeping generalisations in that I'm at pains to say not all do, but some do. Some absolutely do sell off topsoil. And it leaves gardens in a completely unacceptable state as far as I'm concerned. And again, it's a real hidden problem, because if you're not a knowledgeable gardener that understands about quality of soil and all of these things, and again, me up to about 4 or 5 years ago, I would have known good soil from bad soil to indifferent soil. I wouldn't have the first idea about challenging a developer on whether they'd left me with good soil quality. I tried to grow a few herbs and they all died within the first kind of couple of weeks. I just put that down to my own kind of personal incompetence rather than sort of anything to do with the soil. But I mean, we've lived here for 4 years, and I'm still digging up bits of pipe, bits of rubble, bits of brick, you name it, bits of plastic, everything is just kind of thrown in there.
No respect for the soil at all, is there?
No, completely not. And I get not to step in and defend developers, but I do get that they are working at volume and that they're working at pace and they've got targets that they need to meet. But it's not a lot of effort to leave some topsoil in place actually and give people a fighting chance. A lot of the stuff we've done over the last 4 years has been focused on improving the soil, and unfortunately that has cost a lot of time and a lot of money as well. And again, not necessarily time and money that everyone has available to them. It's a really costly process trying to get the soil back to a reasonable state.
What about then wildlife? Because even before the plants are there, there's some things you can do in terms of like wildlife corridors and how simple they can be. So kind of like, what about the kind of almost like the hard landscaping elements before any of the plants go in that you can do to incorporate wildlife corridors, swift boxes as well, maybe bee bricks or bat boxes? What is possible that could be installed from the word go?
So again, you're completely right that swift boxes, big boxes, and again, to credit some developers, some are already starting to do that in places, which is great. But this kind of thing should become in kind of standard. And again, hedgehog highways are a classic case of this is like no cost to a developer. You put in a fence up, put a small hole in it, and cut the hole in every single bit of fence that is running. I'm looking out my window now. It's an absolute sea of fence panels. All you have to do is cut a little hole that runs, all the way along the estate. It's a 10-second job for anyone that knows what they're doing. It doesn't cost any money whatsoever.
And also, explain to residents what it is, because I can imagine residents ringing up, there's a hole in my fence. You need to explain it.
That's completely about the knowledge piece, isn't it? And actually, educating new build gardeners about the fact it's not a defective fence with a great big hole in it. It's there to encourage nature. And that connection piece is so important, because I certainly feel where I'm at the moment is we've got these isolated oases in kind of deserts, in that, we've done an awful lot, or we hopefully have done an awful lot for kind of nature in our garden. But there are, lots of people around us that have done absolutely nothing with their gardens. And that's not a criticism or a judgment, in any way, shape or form. But it does mean that it lessens the impact, actually, because all you're doing is creating a really rich biodiverse environment, but that's still surrounded by a kind of sea of blank fences and turf.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? But like you said at the beginning, access to, I guess, easy ways to do something in their garden that will benefit them and wildlife. I just want to go back to the soil a little bit. I know a lot of building site soil, or what they leave over, if you can even barely call it soil, is very compacted, which is very difficult to plant in, and can also give drainage issues as well. Have you had that in your garden? Was it very compacted, or was it just all very like rubble and stone?
It was compacted. So anytime we get any rain, it's really then difficult for that water to drain away, because we're also on heavy clay. So it sits in kind of pools whenever we get any kind of decent amount of rainfall. And again, talking to other new build owners, I've seen some of the evidence of this. They are just like the little mini floodplains almost, because the ground is so compacted. And again, it's not a tough job in my mind, that when you're leaving a site or preparing a site for someone to move into, that you just spend a little bit of time doing that kind of aeration of the soil. It's, for a developer, it's not a big job for them to kind of take on that responsibility, but it's a little bit of time up front, but it's the amount of problems that then saves down the road, and that we're still dealing with those challenges kind of 4 years later.
Yeah, it's and actually you mentioned like rain, so basically you get kind of puddles of rain. What about water butts? I noticed there was a talk about a suggestion in your manifesto about water butts for new build homes as well.
Yeah, they should just be as standard. Again, you can buy water butts at commercial rates for absolutely next to nothing. The downpipes in all new build homes are like completely tailor-made for. They're perfect for water butts. So it's one of those things that actually we shouldn't be messing around with this kind of thing. It should just come as a matter of course. And again, it's really great that some developers do that already, but they should all be doing it. There's a recognition from everyone in this country that we've got to do as much as we can around preserving water and protecting the climate and our environment with all the stuff going on with climate change. But that's a really small step. It doesn't cost the earth, but would make such a huge difference actually to water consumption and our overall kind of impact on the environment. Little things can make huge impacts. We haven't had a water butt here. We want to put one in ourselves, but again, that's a whole load of hassle and work actually of carving out downpipes and all the rest of it. That not everyone kind of has the handy tips and tricks to know how to do that for themselves. So why not give them a leg up?
Okay. And what about your manifesto mentions like planting the garden? Obviously, we've talked about how we could, get kind of planting packs or designs. But what about kind of like actually how we spread the knowledge and inspiration and keep people engaged with the garden? It's all very well giving them all of these different elements to begin with, but they still might be a little bit lost without too much education or kind of ownership as well, because we were talking about kind of like for them to become almost like aware of the land that they own and its importance in the chain of nature as well, kind of what can we do with that kind of like knowledge?
Completely. I've agreed. I really liked what you guys were saying earlier around that sort of guardians of the countryside, of nature, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of at the core of my philosophy with all of this stuff, in that I believe that as a homeowner, the land I'm sitting on has been taken away from nature previously, and I have a serious responsibility to make sure that the impact that I have is lessened as much as possible, and hopefully actually provide something that's even more diverse and different to what was there before. So, I take that responsibility really seriously. I think in terms of how we share the knowledge, I think social media is really great for kind of new build owners. There's lots of really good people on social media that fly the flag for new builds. This is where I'm going to perhaps be a little bit sacrilegious, but I think sometimes Gardener's World and programs like that, as amazing as they are, and believe me, I'm obviously a huge fan of Gardener's World, it can create unrealistic expectations about what a garden is really all about. I love looking at Longmeadow and all those sorts of places as much as anyone, and you'll see me every weekend at some fancy garden somewhere. But I think it's a bit like, I liken it a bit to sort of like garden porn in a way, in that it's so, they're so beautiful and so amazing. But, if I came back to my garden and experimented with kind of prairie planting, I have about 2 varieties of plants in my garden. It's about things on TV and in the garden, perhaps more of the traditional garden media, actually being a bit more relatable, a bit more scalable. I still think there's a level of assumed knowledge sometimes in the kind of garden media about what people do and don't know.
If I can jump in there, there's also kind of there's also this assumption that everyone wants a typical cottage garden and that is the best thing, but maybe they want something that's more nostalgic, reminds them of their childhood, maybe with some lovely petunias or something. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like trying to push a one-fits-all approach, which is, not the only way to have a great garden for yourself and for nature.
No, I completely agree with that. And I think there's a really almost English stylized version of what a beautiful garden looks like. And it is that kind of, it's a great big 16th century manor house with a massive walled garden that, you've got kind of that cottage style, like you say. I don't see new build homes and the word beautiful being used in the same sentence by kind of anything I see, around garden. So it's about redefining what we think of as kind of, the aesthetic qualities of what can make a garden beautiful, I think, rather than just the sort of, the obvious English standard.
Yeah. Okay. I've actually got a bit of a curveball question here, which is something that I've thought about quite often. I just wonder what your input is in terms of, we're talking about new builds here, but what about apartments? Because I always think when I wander around, like near Camden, Alexandra Road, Rowley Way, Barbican, all of these apartment blocks that actually had a space incorporated for plants or a window box. We don't see that anymore. We just see a balcony, and it's assumed maybe you'll put plants on the balcony, but there's nothing that kind of encourages you to do that. Have you had any thoughts about apartments and how, like, even a window box or a planter could be incorporated into the balcony in some way in order to encourage people to grow and also create those, not necessarily a wildlife corridor in that essence, but what's it called? They call it a bee highway, don't they? So if more than one apartment has plants, then the bee can move along. Have you had any thoughts along those lines from kind of more city dwellers, as it were?
Yeah, well, I think it's a really, really great thought, Michael, actually, and one that, again, from a development point of view, putting a window box added onto a balcony, that's a matter of pence for them.
Yeah.
That is not a big expense to kind of give people the tools to be able to do a bit with their gardens. And as you've illustrated, there's so much stuff you can do on balcony spaces, and almost that's where you can get people started with that interest on a really kind of small scale. And then if they move somewhere else with a slightly bigger space, they've already kind of inherited that love of gardening, love of plants, and developed some of that knowledge as well. So I completely agree that it's not just about the suburban spaces. Arguably, it's even easier to give people the tools in apartments and that sort of environment because it costs pence to do that. It's not an expensive job.
But I'm almost thinking it needs to be incorporated in the hard landscaping. Do you know what I mean? Like the Barbican, actually, part of the balcony has the planter in. Because I think if you give someone, if every apartment came with 4 free window boxes, they would easily just sit there with nothing in. But if you had it incorporated into the design, what's the word I'm looking for? Into the manufacture? No, into the build.
Integrated, integrated into the design. I mean, that's like probably more costly there and time consuming, and developers want, they want to
but if it becomes a standard,
I used to work at a community garden, and we had a lot of kind of apartments around the garden, and we used to give out, it was funded by the National Lottery actually, but this is just to show you how easy it is. We used to give out window boxes with a small bag of compost and some seeds. And not everyone would do it, no, but lots of people would do it. So you would then walk down the street and see, maybe kind of like a third, I suppose, of the apartments had actually used them. So there are ways and means of doing that with apartments. But you're right, Michael, because we both have a balcony at the end of the day, don't we? Sometimes I look out and I think, so I'm sitting here now and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 apartment balconies, and mine is the only one with plants on.
Yeah, I probably got the same.
That's so sad. So that's just the same as a new build garden. It's like you look out to your garden and there's all the plants, and you look across and there's some that aren't. So it is about that education and knowledge and inspiration.
It's funny that they were on the cusp of it in brutalist times, actually.
That's so true.
But also, you've got examples as well. I'm sure you've seen, Andrew, but the Bosco Verticale in Milan, in Italy, which is obviously incorporates plants into the whole design of the building. In planters.
Yeah,
I guess
there's ways and means.
Maintenance is a question, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So, Andrew, you have a ton of passion and, experience and knowledge now, and you really want to, push this out, don't you? So where and when will you take your new Build Manifesto to? What happens next for you and the manifesto?
I'm talking to developers already around some of the ideas on this and how we can work it from both ends. As I've said a couple of times in this conversation, that this is not about hammering developers and telling the world about how evil they are. There are challenges there. And again, coming from that world, I understand how much pressure they're under for all sorts of reasons. But it is to show them there's commercial opportunity there in, things like designing bespoke gardens. I'd really like it if that was with local garden designers, local landscape companies as well. I think that's a win-win in terms of actually local employment and local opportunities as well in a lot of these areas. People talk a lot about new build homes going up, but where are the jobs around some of those new builds? Well, I think it's, helping to kind of, boost the local economy. So I'm having conversations with developers. I'm hoping that actually we might be able to do a pilot with a couple of local developers in the next sort of 6 months where we look at some of those ideas, some of the small ones, some of the bigger ones. Again, I'm fortunate enough coming from the world that I've come from that, I've got some contacts with local government and central government and the kind of housing department. So I want to talk to the housing guys around what can be done from a planning perspective to try and mandate some of this kind of stuff, and about how developments need to be more aware of biodiversity and all of those other things around kind of green spaces. So encouraging developers to come to the table, but also some of this may need to be mandated by government at the end of the day. I've worked in the sector for a long time. Mandating things does work, as sometimes it's a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut, but it can work. So, I'm hoping that actually working both ends, but then talking to, guys like yourselves who can hopefully help raise a profile for it, but engaging with new build owners as well and talking to them about their experiences and what they've learned. I don't profess to have all the answers. I can go on what my lived experience is, but other people will have other thoughts, so I'm going through a bit of that period of consultation with lots of people at the minute to get their input on it. So it feels like it's something that lots of people have got their stake in, actually, rather than it being a sort of personal passion project for myself.
Well, you're starting a very important conversation, I think, and of course that will start pretty much at the Spring Harrogate Flower Show. Tell us about your garden and your plans for there. Yeah, so I'm sort of cautiously optimistic, shall we say, about what can be achieved. So my garden at Harrogate's called Over the Fence, and I suppose it's quite bold in a way in that I'm devoting
a bit of the space. So it's going to be separated by a communal, fence that you see in new build estates all over the place that will split the space, with one part being the kind of nightmarish rubble, plastic, hardcore brick, and nothing else. And then on the other side, hopefully what we want to do is show what you can do in quite a small space, but also in quite a short space of time. So we're going to have a wildlife pond in there, a mature tree, a couple of shrubs. I think what I want to show through the garden is just how quickly you can make a garden look mature with the right choices and the right attitude. I think a lot of people think it takes years and years and years to get a garden looking like it's been there forever. And it's one of the nicest things people say about, my garden at home is that they can't believe we've only lived there for 4 years, because it looks like the garden's been there for 20, 30 years. So I think it's showing people how they can, I guess, age a space, really quite quickly and make it blend in with the landscape, without it looking completely sort of out of kilter with it being a new build home. So it's really to just, and again, it's not necessarily poking at developers, but it is designed to be quite provocative about, exactly what new build owners have to deal with and the scale of the challenge. So, it might put a few noses out of joint, but I think that's part of the challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to make change. Disruption makes change, at the end of the day. So I'm excited to see your Harrogate Spring Flower Show garden. I think that will make an impact and definitely get people thinking as well. So that's very cool. Where can listeners find out more about your new build manifesto?
So I'm on Instagram, and my handle is at the New Build Manifesto. So please do kind of give it a follow. I'm regularly kind of putting stuff on there. I'll be putting stuff on there about the Harrogate Garden, and then really starting to push out some stuff about progress that we make and conversations that I'm having with developers and others. So I really encourage anyone that's interested in the topic of new build gardens and has got something to say and something to add, which I'm sure there are lots of people. Just do get in touch with me. I'm really interested to hear stories and people's experiences.
Oh, well, I've just pressed follow, so I'm encouraging everyone listening to go and press follow. New Build Manifesto.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for your time today. I really love this project you're up to. And if there's anything we can do now or in the future, then count us in. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much, guys, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh la la.
So before we started recording, Michael said, "Hello, fridge magnet." There's always a new word, like new description of me, and I don't really know where fridge magnet came.
The thing is, to me, it's just random words, but to you, you're probably like, oh, I wonder what that means.
For about 2 seconds after you've said it, and then I'm like, I'm over that now.
Oh, look at my hair. It's amazing. Look at that.
It's long.
I know.
I think last time we gossiped, we'd said, can you put it in a top knot? Yeah. Can you do that?
Not quite yet, no. But
get in there.
It's not like I'm not looking forward to that necessarily.
Oh, you don't like a top knot?
No. Oh my God, Ellen, it's so sunny and warm here.
Well, spring is arriving, huh?
Exemplary, but it feels like summer. It's like spring has started, which is 3 months long, but it feels like summer already, which is cool. It's like, if I didn't know better, then I'd think it might be a pandemic. But isn't it like, wasn't it the 20th of March when the lockdown started as well?
I think it was something like that, because I can remember having to fly back to the US, and I can remember the date as clear as anything as being the 14th of March.
Yeah.
I remember that date having to fly. So around about then, yeah. Hopefully the spring weather stays, because we have, where we are, it is like a false spring. So weather is absolutely beautiful. It's like an English summer. So spring here is like an English summer there, yeah. But then all of a sudden, overnight, it will be 1 degree. So people start planting out. Do you know what I mean? Too soon, and then it's so we're in a false spring.
Good to know.
Well, you know.
But yeah, what to say? I don't know what to say, Ellen.
Well, talking of spring, I'm going to tell you that I went to Atlanta Botanical Gardens.
Yeah.
See
nice.
that they have
getting out the house.
they have like a spring bloom, and that's in Georgia, so they are slightly ahead of us even here by probably a couple of weeks, 2 weeks maybe. And all the tulips are out. In fact, some of them are nearly already, done. And loads of daffodils. And honestly, I know we say it every year, but it really does make you feel good.
Oh, I'm going to Holland next week to Keukenhof and stuff. So yeah,
you're going to see all of the tulips. It's just so uplifting.
I don't know why they don't do away with winter. It's really not that essential. Well, I guess they do in Florida, don't they?
They do, but also they have a whole lot of pests and diseases. And
true.
So I actually really like having the seasons. I think it's really important.
Ooh la la. Well, Ellen, you'd be very proud of me. I'm really taking my working existence a lot easier these last couple of weeks. Kind of like, you can see I'm horizontal.
You're always horizontal. When we record, you're always horizontal.
Trying to add kind of gaps into stuff as well. I went to a cool event for Robert Dias yesterday, showcasing their new products, which was cool. Some cute little things coming through, and it's always nice to see little Instagram people as well, which is always cute. I realised, it's so, because I primarily work, on my own, because obviously I go to studios or go do presentations, but, when I'm working at home, I'm just myself. It's so nice when you come together in these little kind of community get-togethers and stuff. And, yeah, we should have those on the calendar more often, actually, in some way. Yeah. Yeah,
and when we go to garden shows and you see people who it is really lovely.
But it's not even specific people. It's just kind of the feeling that's, I don't know, you see people that are doing a similar thing to you. Otherwise, you can feel very kind of solitary with it, really. So
yeah, definitely.
No, how to describe it, but yeah.
Oh, who's who? Who did you see? Give them a shout out. Do you remember?
Mindful Gardener, you know her, don't you?
Yeah, she's lovely.
Oh my gosh, Gardening Midwife, Lottie Time.
Yeah.
Cara, Gardening with Cara.
Yeah, pink hair.
Yeah, we only talk Instagram names. Tori's Allotment.
Lovely. Tori came to the retreat last year.
Which one?
Tori.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, I really want to be able to go, honestly. I really want to know the closest recommendation that you've got for another one.
I can only recommend my own.
Yeah, but I will be on a very relaxing cruise that I'm also working on. So, at the time, will you be able to relax though in between doing talks and stuff on the cruise? Yeah, because it's not really. It's only 4. Well, I'm doing 2 cruises, so it'll be 4 talks in that case. So yeah, but it should be pretty cool. Oh my God, I'm so distracted. Look, this primrose it's looking amazing indoors, but it's just, they smell so good.
Is that the flamenco?
Yeah, it's just incredible. Honestly, oh my God.
And for anyone who wonders what that looks like, just go to Michael's Instagram where he's done some really funny reels.
Instagram, oh yeah. Yeah, so that was that. What was I talking about? I can't remember now.
Oh, we were talking about you went to the Robert Dias thingy, and then you were going on the cruise.
Oh, the people and the cruise. And sorry, I fell out of shot. But yeah, and I was filming some cool stuff for QVC in a Choose Your Spring character, which was nice. But yeah, I'm having a bit of a chilled spring. So you'd be proud of me.
I'm so pleased for you. It's about time that you did that, and you know that it's time, and that's lovely. Exploring things. You've had family stay with you as well, haven't you?
Yeah. My nephews were here, which is really cool. It's always nice to I don't know, show people around London. It's really cool, especially people that haven't been before, because it's a really fine city, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's like amazing. Nowhere else, really.
Yeah. London is 100% my favourite city. I love it. It's just the best place to be. I really, when I land back in London, I genuinely feel happy and excited. Do you know what I mean? I'm yeah.
So yeah, but I'm looking forward to going to Holland to get my teeth into Keukenhof and visit some different growers for decorum. What else? Just some different meetings and stuff. It's so nice being on the ground there because you really can then just catch up with people, just call in, have a little cup of coffee, decaf only.
Oh, please.
But yeah, so that should be really cool. So I hope the weather's nice though,
Well, yeah, but you also be busy doing your thing and enjoying it. So,
but you'll be back in a couple of weeks, right? I think.
Yeah, I get back on the 9th of April.
Okay, yeah.
So and then I'm there till around about the 12th-ish of May.
Ooh la la.
Yeah, back and forward a bit this year, and I think I'm going to have to make some changes for sure.
Yeah, of what?
Well, I'm not going to be in the UK as much this year, so yeah.
What are you going to do, Melon?
Who knows? Still looking for the farm.
I always miss you, Melon.
Nah, I miss your face.
Oh, thank you.
Your beard mostly.
My face. You don't have to miss my face.
Okay, I miss being like you always have something tactile on. So whenever we meet up, there's always something tactile for me to stroke.
I thought of that. It's really funny. It's like, what would you want someone else to describe you as? And it's like, well, easily touched.
Easily touched.
Touchable. So funny. What was that? What was I just going to tell you? It was about. What was it about? I can't remember now. Something to do with farms.
To do with what?
Farms. I'm not sure. I don't know. You carry on.
Oh, okay. Did you want me to talk about farms? We've mentioned it before on here that I'd really love to have kind of like a flower farm, but grow food for the community, especially where we are here. There's a lot of poverty, and also there's a whole load of things here at the moment about funding for farmers to provide food to schools and stuff, but that impacts the poorer, community. So I'd love to do something like that. I mean, it's in it for the long haul kind of thing. So we've been looking for land, but I found it really difficult because the land that's good or that we could possibly farm is out of town quite far. And I am a townie. So we go to these properties and we see the land. I'm like, wow, this is absolutely beautiful. And then I'm like, oh, but there's kind of nothing around here. I don't
get that in the town, you Willie.
Huh?
You won't get that, but you won't get land in the town. So
no, but I mean, I'd like to be closer. What I'm saying is these are quite far out. Like, I'd like to just be a little closer so that I could at least drive into town, within a certain amount of time. But I've been like, I just, it's really rural. This is really far out. So, I believe, as you know, in manifestation and everything, that I think the right property will come up, and we'll know when it does.
That's cool.
I'm not forcing it. It'll just happen.
Well, I like being here in my, because I moved to have more light and more sun, and already I'm like, oh my god, my apartment's too hot in the summer. This is like, this is the sign that I made the right decision because the curtains are closed. But it's like, what an opportunity to have the sun all day. I just, I don't want to speak ill of that, as it were, because I just I'm a bit like, oh my god, I have to close the curtains. But like before, I was always wishing the sun was there. This is the position to be in. So
absolutely.
I need to decide, make my mind up about I think I need a garden soon, if you know what I mean. I feel like this is cool, but maybe until like the end of the summer or something like that kind of time scale. But I miss having a kind of outdoor space where you can easily play, because you can do stuff on balconies, but you have to be really tidy with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and also you can never go away. You can never go away.
Especially when it's south facing.
It's like, I get it. Like ours are all container planting here apart from right the front, and we have to get someone to come in when we're away because they dry out so far.
But it's not just that. It's the kind of even when you do a job there, it makes a huge mess whatever you do. Whereas if you do something in a garden, it kind of just it just soaks into the lawn or something. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. And I don't know what your balcony's like. Like what is below? Someone else, or is it still you below?
No, it's still us below.
Okay, so if you water your plants, it drips on yourself, yeah?
If we water the plants, it drips on the kind of drive below and onto the road where there's a drain. So
Like here, when you do that, it's then dripping onto other people.
Yeah.
And then you're like, people are like, oh, we got wet balconies. So it's
not water. Oh my gosh, water on a balcony.
But I kind of understand it because it's not just water, but it's going to bring kind of dirt with it as well, isn't it? When it drips out of the bottom of a pot or something. So I kind of get it, but it's like, it's so strangely restrictive in that way.
Yeah. It's funny though how people don't like any form of dirt. Like it's not like a whole pot of soil's going to come over the top. Do you know what I mean?
Well, but Ellen, think about it. It's like, I'm actually on their side with this, but it's like then going to smear down their wall and stuff because it's just going to be, So I totally get it. But yeah, it's just different things you have to consider on a balcony sort of thing.
Yeah, that is very true. Very true.
Yeah, but I really then can't decide like where to be or what to do, and like I'm such an indecisive little chicken,
Also, I think when you have options, whilst that's a privilege, it's odd, because then you're like, well, I could do any of these 5 things or live in any of these 5 places, or do you know what I mean? It's like a privilege, absolutely, to have that problem, but it can make it tricky.
I need to be pushed into something. That's what I need.
So you want a garden.
Actively encouraged.
Do you want a big garden?
Not necessarily, because I know that big gardens, like, they're kind of like a bit panicky because they are quite big, and I remember like I really quite enjoyed the size of my garden in Suffolk. Like fair dues, it was kind of like completely in the wrong location, but I would still be very happy with that garden now.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Geographically wasn't, but that size, because you can really make it feel cozy. Whereas if you've got a big garden, how do you make that feel cozy? And it's kind of like a lot to maintain as well.
But you make areas cozy, so whilst you might not like you can make the whole thing cozy, you make areas that you can go to that are cozy.
Yeah, true. So I don't know, melon balls. We're both at such crossroads in our lives.
I know. I think it's our age as well.
Oh, my flip.
Oh, I know.
I got this, we had a lovely interview with Andrew about the new Build Manifesto, this episode, if you remember, and there were some great tips about what to do in your garden if you are a new build owner, because also, Ella Mary, while I'm highlighting the episode content to you, I'm also highlighting to you that it's the final episode of this series.
It is the final episode of this series, but before we even go to that, can we just talk about the new Build Manifesto?
Oh, of course, yeah. I wasn't sure if you had anything to add, because you looked blank, a bit blank.
No, sorry, I was thinking about it the other day after we'd interviewed Andrew, and I was thinking, isn't it such a shame that Andrew or, whoever builds a new build, whoever moves into a new build, has to kind of push this through to developers or government? Why? Like, this should be standard practice that any new build development has hedgehog highways, swift boxes, bee boxes, decent soil, at least decent topsoil, and maybe like a little garden area that everyone could go to. Do you know what I mean? There should be some kind of from government, because we're putting up all of these houses everywhere and taking out space, like green spaces. Like, isn't it such a shame that we have to, Andrew's doing an amazing job, but in general, have to kind of build manifestos to do this. This should just be as it should be.
Well, hopefully it'll make a difference, because it makes a lot of sense, and it's relatively simple stuff as well. It's just changing a practice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very basic. But so I live on a new townhome.
I remember your drama with your what's it?
The HOA, which is the Homeowners Association. They tell you what you can and can't do, basically, and they didn't like that I put some plants in the front of the garden, but they're still there. So this is like 18 months later. So I think we're winning that one at the moment. But the other day there were some problems with parking, and there's a WhatsApp group for like people in the community, and someone was saying, please don't park here. You're not meant to park in this space. UPS truck had come around the corner and hit someone's balcony because it couldn't get through. So they'd had this drop. which is right. You know, you shouldn't park on that corner. That's a silly place to park. The poor girl on the corner has a broken balcony, so I get it. However, someone within that group said, don't you think we should have some more parking on the community? Like, it seems, and they'd said, doesn't it seem weird that the developers put so much effort into the butterfly garden when they could have just made parking instead?
Oh my God.
And I was like,
what did Yellow Balls say?
Gosh, I didn't say anything because I kind of mulled that over for a really long time. It's like not a big area, so it's not like you get a ton of cars in there anyway. But regardless of that, the fact a developer had genuinely thought about a green area, planted native plants. There's just a small patch, but it is really nice. And last year in summer, it was full of butterflies and bees, and it was just so nice. And they were like, oh, we prefer to park our trucks there. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh gosh, if this is what people think, then we're in trouble, right? You know?
Oh, I'm sorry, darling.
The butterfly garden's not going anywhere. That's staying there because it's part of the development, it's part of the plans. But I was just thinking, isn't that really sad to think that people really do think that?
No, totally.
So it is about education and knowledge. And Andrew, who obviously on this episode really is great with what he's doing, and I wish him all the best.
Cool.
But yeah, we're at the end of the series. Does that mean I don't have to speak to you again, or
No, you do, because we're going to thank our sponsor Lava Light, and we're going to welcome our new sponsor British Garden Centres, because we will be having another series. You know, you rascal. We'll still be series. Do you know what series it is? Oh my gosh!
I know the next series.
I just series check, but do you know what it is?
18.
That is mad. That's actually mad, Ellen.
Yeah, it is mad, isn't it?
Like, well, no, it's not mad. It's like amazing. Well done.
The first episode.
We are allowed to boast. Hello.
I think the first episode we ever released was in early 2019. I've got a feeling. Like, I think we recorded
5 or 6 year anniversary the other week, didn't we? I think.
Yeah, because we were recording at the end of 2018 for the first series, and then I think the first release was like January or February 2019.
Yeah.
So that's like amazing. Go us. Yay.
Oh, so cool. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much to Lava Light for sponsoring Series 17. We love them. So lava-light.co.uk for lots of super volcanic products to help your plants thrive. I do use the no slugs, by the way. I think it's brilliant. It's like organic, and it stops slugs crawling onto your plants and doesn't harm them in any way. And also, I'm going to be repotting all my orchids, which are in desperate need of it, and I'm going to be using their orchid grow as well. So there's lots of nice products. Thank you to them. And then our next series, we'll open with British Garden Centres, and we can talk all about them on that first episode in 2 weeks.
Of course.
I think it's 2 weeks, or is it 3 weeks? 2 or 3 weeks?
We're having a week's break, Ellen Mary.
A whole week? Oh my gosh.
Exotic. But what I want to say about Lava Light, because we give like a tip each week on QVC, and you can win a golden trowel. And I won it recently with a tip about Lava Light.
Did you? What was your tip?
Just about using Lava Light, really.
Just so you know.
Can you tell what's my leg and what's my arm?
I'm going to say Michael's leg is in the air, and it actually looks like he's naked. And
I'm an art form. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
Feels slightly unwell.
I'm a bit delirious, honestly.
I think you're... Did you have coffee? Are you a decaf?
Not cool. It's like... This sofa is the problem. It's a very weird shape.
Your sofa?
Oh, no. It came with the rental, so I couldn't choose it. Oh dear. But no, it's wonderful. Great to see you. What's on your agenda today, Ella Mary?
My agenda today is, it's a lovely sunny day, so I'm going to take the doodle for a walk around the lake, and then I've got a ton of writing to do. I'll probably be writing well into the evening.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's mad.
It is mad. And sounds really boring, doesn't it? But I learned tons while I'm doing it.
Yeah. Wow.
Mainly about trees and hedging and stuff, so yeah.
Oh, cool.
What about you?
I wish you every success.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm just hanging out, really. I might go to Q. I was actually, this is the degree of my laziness today. I was actually going to record with you at Q today. I was going to just record as I was walking around, but I didn't quite get there yet, so...
I love it.
Became a different person.
I love it. This is great. I think this is really good for your mind, body, and soul. Just go wherever you feel.
I'm usually so efficient. There's so many things on my agenda that when someone asks me, I'm like, right, boom, 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 and I'm just like, well, yeah, not much.
That's a good thing. I think that we always feel like if someone says what you're up to, you've got to say that you're busy, because that's how we've kind of been taught to be. But I'm more than happy to be like, nah, just going for a walk around the lake. It's great.
I have to say, yesterday at the Robert Dias event, kind of when people are like, oh, what you been up to? It's like that question. You feel like you've got to pull something cool out of the bag. It's just a moment, you know what I mean?
Nah, no, I used to, but not anymore.
I met the coolest thing that I could think of on the spot was doing the plant catwalk, which was in January, so it was a bit out of date. Oh dear, melon balls.
All right, Michael, I'm going to go. Look, here comes the doodle. Look, she's actually getting my arm because it's time for her to go.
Is that a real dog?
Hi. Say hi. That's Michael. That's Michael.
That a real dog, Ellen?
That's a real dog. Look, there's Michael on here.
Hello. I'm like you. Hello.
Billy.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Does she not even wonder where the sound's coming from? Hello.
You don't care. She did then. Do that again.
You what?
Whiff again. Whiff again.
Good bark, isn't it? It's like angry small dog.
Yeah. She's gonna bark back at you.
Angry small dog. That should be the name of your autobiography, Ellen.
Look, she's barking back at you.
No, she's not.
Jesus.
No, that was too high pitched. That was too comedy bark. She's looking at me. She thinks I'm going to orgasm. Yes, she's barking. We did it. We did it. Don't mute her.
Huh?
Did you mute her, poor girl?
Did I do what?
Did you mute her?
No.
Let her express herself.
I do let her express herself. Oh, believe me, she expresses herself.
She does look a bit stuck up, to be honest. Yeah.
We call her a diva. She's
really?
Diva. And she's nonchalant like a cat, but she's got real...
Well, I said, is she a real dog?
Yeah, she's just she's got very diva independent tendencies as well. She's independent. She's funny. You're a cutie, aren't you? Okay, we're going to go now because she's going to keep barking if not.
Okay, wonderful. And I started that off. Great.
You did. Yeah, thanks for your very strange woofing.
Cool. I think it's very authentic. A lot of people do woofing in a very obvious way.
Yeah,
true. Oh, look, she's clawing at you now. Yeah.
She's clawing at me because she's been woken up with weird barks on the screen. She's like, what's going on?
Go away. I'll see you in Series 18.
You will do. Bye.
Ciao, Bunga. Introducing our sponsors, Lavalight. Lavalight Plus, the orange one. Lavalight Plus is a natural grow media all-rounder. It's perfect for borders and great as a pot topper, both in the home and the garden. It offers thermal protection for cold winter nights, as well as holding up to 25% moisture. Look out for it online and in your local gardening stores. The music for the Plant-Based podcast is part of the song Grow by Mikey James, and our editor is Gareth Patch of Semi Echo.